The sirens came for them, not for me. Neighbors in their robes, phones out, the red of the fire truck splashing over white picket fences, and my son, my own son, charging through the smoke to save two people who did not deserve to be saved. That was the end of it. But endings never start with fire trucks. They start with small, slippery things, like a tube of personal lubricant in your husband's glove compartment. Like a perfumed napkin in the back seat of the car you paid for, like a 5-word email that says, "More than 40 years of marriage ever will." 5 words. "You were incredible tonight, Dad." That was the moment the crack formed. Not when I found the tube, not when I smelled the perfume, not even when I saw my husband of 4 decades holding hands with the woman who married my son. No. It started when I realized something worse than betrayal. They were planning to take everything I built. My name is Juliet Roberts. I am 62 years old. I have been a wife longer than I have been anything else, longer than I have been a mother, longer than I have been a business owner. I built a bakery from my own 2 hands, flour on my apron, receipts tucked into my bra, deliveries done in rain and heat, 1 oven, then 2, then 4, and finally a small chain of stores with my name on the glass. I thought I had a partner. I didn't. I had a parasite, and parasites don't just take love. They take inheritances. They take businesses. They take homes. They take dignity. So when I tell you I put industrial superglue into a tube of personal lubricant and left it right back where I found it, like a trap waiting for a rodent, you need to understand that was not the act of a jealous wife. That was the act of a woman whose 40-year life was being stripped, transfer by transfer, signature by signature, kiss by secret kiss. And I was not going to let them finish. That night was like so many others. I sat at the kitchen table, the scarred wooden one, the one we bought the year our son, Daniel, was born. The house was quiet, the kind of thick, wet silence that sits on your shoulders. The old wedding clock on the wall, my mother's last gift to me, ticked like a judge tapping a gavel. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Julian, my husband, came in late. Again, he had that same tired, "Oh honey, business dinners are exhausting" look on his face. He tossed his jacket across the sofa like a man who thinks a woman will follow behind him and fold it. He loosened his tie, groaned like a martyr, and collapsed on the bed without even reaching for the shower. He smelled of cologne, and of something floral. Not my rosewater, not the vanilla cream I sometimes wore on Sundays. No. This was younger, sharper, nervier, the kind of perfume women wear when they still want to be looked at. I didn't say anything. When you've been married 40 years, silence is not absence, it's observation. He snored. Not 10 minutes later, I started to tidy as wives do. Jacket on a hanger, wallet on the console, keys in the dish, phone on the table, and that's when I saw it. His phone screen was still on. An email. Julian never used email. The man could draft a contract but couldn't open a PDF without calling for me. He said, "All this tech is too much, Juliet. I just call people." But there it was. I picked it up, opened it, and the world I thought I lived in, the faithful husband world, the I'm just I world, the business trip world, burned to ash in a single sentence. "You were incredible tonight, Dad." I remember actually looking behind me, like someone was going to leap out and tell me it was a prank. Dad, who calls their father-in-law that way, who writes that after business dinners. Why the heart? My throat went dry. My thumb scrolled for more. No thread, no earlier messages, no follow-up, no signature, just a nonsense email address and that line. Which meant something more terrifying. He was deleting things. A man who can barely use email had somehow figured out how to delete the parts I could use against him. The phone slipped in my hand. I put it right back where it had been. I kept moving, picking up clothes, emptying pockets. That was when I found the receipt. San Antonio, not Dallas. He said Dallas. He hates Dallas, but San Antonio. San Antonio is memories. His late mother, little streets, old restaurants. 2 people, steak, pasta, a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, the exact one he'd bought me on our 10th anniversary. He hadn't bought it for me again. He'd bought it for someone else. I snapped a photo, then another, the email, the receipt. My hands were shaking so hard, I had to hold the phone with 2 hands like a child. I didn't make a scene. I didn't storm into the bedroom and wake him up and scream, "Who is she?" Because, at 62, you know something 22-year-old girls don't. A man who is cheating on you has already practiced lying to you. But if you let him keep performing, He gets comfortable, and when he gets comfortable, he gets sloppy, so I let him sleep. I finished cleaning, and then I went to the garage. Julian's SUV was still warm, the air smelled of gasoline, and that same floral perfume I'd caught on his clothes. I checked the usual places: folder's side pocket, under the seat and thing. Then I opened the glove compartment that my fingers brushed plastic. I pulled it out, and there it was. A tube of personal lubricant, not full, the cap rim-crusted. My heart didn't just sink, it hardened, because Julian and I, let's be honest, hadn't been intimate in years. His idea of romance was a pat on the shoulder and you should rest. Juliet, you work too hard. He liked to play the tired old businessman. Age, it takes the desire away. Does it? Then why the Lube, Julian? Why the perfume-drenched napkins under the back seat? Why the empty condom in the trunk? I put it all back exactly how I'd found it. I even wiped my hands because somehow touching that tube felt dirty, like picking up underwear that wasn't yours. I walked back into my kitchen knowing 3 things. My husband was cheating. He was good at hiding it. I was going to be better at exposing it. The next morning was the same act. Morning, Juliet. Morning. I have a meeting today. I know, you're a busy man. I might be late. Take care. Then, he didn't look me in the eye. He kissed the air near my cheek. He left, and I called Mrs. Miller. Mrs. Miller is one of those old friends who don't talk much, but when they do, they hand you the key to a locked door. Years ago, she'd told me, if you ever need to know what a man is doing when he says he's working late, call Thomas. He's discreet, he's fast, and he loves cash. That day, I needed Thomas. Juliet, is everything all right? She asked. No, I said, but it will be. I met Thomas at a little cafe that smelled of burnt coffee and desperation. He was short, balding, and had those eyes, the ones that read you like a file. I handed him a flash drive. What's on it? He asked. The start, I said. Receipt, email, photos of his car. I need to know who she is, where they meet, how often, and if there's anything else. Anything else? Yes, I said. If he's planning anything in my name, because the email could hurt me. The affair could humiliate me, but the contracts could destroy me. He nodded. I'll start today. I walked out of that cafe with a knot in my stomach, not the kind hunters must feel. I was no longer a wife, hoping her husband wasn't cheating. I was a woman collecting evidence. That night, the evidence arrived. Not from Thomas at first, from God. Because sometimes, when evil people make evil plans, they get overconfident. My husband texted me at 11:47 p.m. Juliet, I won't be home tonight. Meeting with a client from out of town. Get some rest. At 12:08 a.m., Thomas sent me a photo. Julian, light blue shirt, fancy restaurant, candle on the table, holding hands with a woman. I zoomed in, and the world tilted. It wasn't a stranger, it wasn't some 30-year secretary. It wasn't an old flame. It was my daughter-in-law. Allison. My son Daniel's wife. The woman I'd taught to make flan. The woman who'd called me Mom. The woman who'd sat at my table. The woman I had trusted to love my son. She was smiling, not guilty, not ashamed. Loving. She was leaning toward him like they'd done it 100 times before. Julian was looking at her the way he hadn't looked at me in 30 years. I watched the video, Thomas sent shake. From far away, Julian pulls out the car door for her. She laughs. She touches his arm. They get in together. I watched it once, twice, 5 times. Every time I watched it, something in me peeled away. Not my dignity, not my love, my hesitation. They weren't having a fling. They were building something, and I was in their way. The next day, more proof. Photos. A lawyer's office, a hotel, a balcony, Julian's arm around Allison's waist, her head on his shoulder, a kiss, not some drunken mistake, a practiced, familiar, we do this all the time, kiss. Then the audio. That audio. Thomas messaged, I got them talking in the parking lot. Listen, I sat at my kitchen table, headphones on, heart pounding like I was the teenager hidden in the closet, not the wife of 40 years. Allison's voice, sweet but hot, came first. Dad, hurry up with that fake contract. I want that whole chain of stores already. I want that old hag out of the house. Old hag. I pressed pause, closed my eyes, then pressed play again. Julian's voice steady, confident, arrogant. Don't worry about those papers. Juliet doesn't know anything. Leave it to me. She trusts me too much. It wasn't just adultery. It was theft. It was conspiracy. It was erasure. They were going to sleep together in my bed and sign away my bakery in my name. That was the night I decided I would not confront them. I would expose them publicly, humiliatingly, irreversibly. Revenge is not rage. Rage is loud. Rage smashes plates. Revenge is quiet. Revenge plans. Revenge remembers where people leave their car keys. That night, I waited until Julian was drunk and sleeping hard. His keys were there. Glinting on the nightstand, I took them. I went to the garage, opened the SUV, opened the glove compartment. There it was again. The tube, loose cap, residue, the same one from before. I held it. Then I went to the kitchen drawer where I keep odds and ends batteries, tape, scissors, industrial, SUPARGLUE. Clear, thick, strong. The kind I had used to fix a chair at the bakery. The kind that, if you get it on your fingers, you have to rip your skin to get free. I emptied the lube. I filled it with glue. Drop by drop, I cleaned the nozzle, smoothed it, tested a little on a tissue. It looked exactly the same. No one would notice. I put it back in the exact same position, at the exact same angle, in the exact same compartment. Then I reset the seat, put the mat back, closed the car. And as I stood there, in the dark garage, in my nightgown, barefoot, smelling of flour and betrayal, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a girl in San Diego with big dreams. Control. They thought I was an old woman. They thought I was weak. They thought I was blind. They thought I was in love. They forgot I was also the woman who built everything, and I was about to protect it. With fire, if I had to. With glue, if I could. The next morning, I laid the second part of the trap. Julian was still playing the I'm busy husband, so I became the I'm busy too wife. Julian, I said casually as I served him eggs and toast, I have to travel to Nashville tomorrow. New partner, big contract. I'll be home late. Can you take care of dinner? His eyes lit up just a little. Relief. Not concern. Of course, he said too fast. Go ahead. I'll handle it. Yes, you will. I wanted to say, you will handle her. In my bed, on my sheets, with my son's wife, with my lube. Except, it wouldn't be lube. Not this time. You already know how the story ends, with smoke, with sirens, with neighbors recording, with two people stuck in a way God never intended, but that's later. Right now, all you need to know is this. I didn't lose control. I designed the scene. I set the stove. I hid the recorder. I made sure the neighbors would see. I made sure my son would be on shift. I made sure there was no way for them to separate before help arrived, because private betrayal is easy to deny, but public humiliation, that stains. And I wanted the stain, not just for me, for every woman who works, cooks, forgives, raises children, builds a business, trusts a man, only to be called that old hag by the girl she welcomed into her home. So, I gave them a scene no one would ever forget, and I will tell you exactly how I did it. I didn't sleep the night before I left town. How could I? I was lying beside the man who was planning to rob me and replace me, while in my head I was rewinding every detail of the trap, the recorder, the stove, the neighbor, the superglue, in the glove compartment, the fake trip, the timing. People think revenge is just emotion. It isn't. Revenge is logistics. You don't just rage, you schedule. You count how long it takes your husband to fall asleep after he lies to you. You notice what time the mistress usually calls. You know which neighbor is always awake and always looking out the window. You know what day your son is on duty with the fire department. You know where your husband will park. You know how stupidly confident cheaters get when they think the wife is out of town. And you use it all. That night I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, listening to Julian snore. I could smell his shampoo, and underneath it, her perfume, the same floral one from the SUV. It wasn't even subtle anymore. That's the thing about people who cheat for a while. They start believing in their own lie. I reached over, took the small recorder from the drawer, Daniel's old college recorder. Funny how our children's things become our weapons. And checked the battery. Full. I switched it to continuous. This wasn't for curiosity. This was for proof. This was for the moment they would swear. It was a misunderstanding. Nothing happened. And I could press play and make them listen to themselves. I hid the recorder behind the bedroom shelf, near the headboard, where Julian liked to lean when he watched TV. I ran the cable along the edge, tucked it behind a photo from our son's wedding photo. Oh, The irony. Julian in a suit, Allison in white, Daniel smiling like a man who believed, me in a soft blue dress I bought even though money was tight back. Then. Now I was using that photo to hide the wire that would destroy them. I stepped back. No wires, visible. No blinking lights. Good. I went to the kitchen and prepared the second part, the one most people call crazy when I tell this story, the smoke trap. Now, I need to say this plainly. I never wanted to burn the house down. I wanted just enough smoke to make the neighbors panic and call for help. I wanted noise. I wanted people. I wanted an audience. An affair is a snake in the dark. I wanted to drag it into the street. I took a skillet, poured a good amount of oil into it, enough to make smoke when heated. I set it on the stove but didn't turn it on yet. Then I tied a thin kitchen string, nothing dramatic, just something I could pull from outside to the stove's igniter knob. I ran the string to the window. Tied it to a heavy old coffee can, pulled once, testing. Click. A small flame licked the pan. Smoke rose fast, dark and thick. I turned it off quickly. Perfect. This wasn't my first kitchen. I knew how oil behaves. I knew how to make a lot of dark smoke without setting the whole place on fire. I opened the window just a little, enough to let the smoke billow out. When it did, it would look awful from the street. And people love a disaster that isn't theirs. I washed my hands. Then I went back to bed like nothing had happened. Morning. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. The sky was still black blue. The house was quiet. Julian snored, rolled, didn't suspect a thing. I dressed in my travel clothes, easy shoes, medium purse, light jacket, the outfit of a woman heading to the bus station to sign a business contract in Nashville. Of course, I was not doing. I leaned over him. Julian, I whispered, like a loving wife, like the woman he thought was still blind. He opened one eye. I have to go now. The bus leaves early. I might be back very late. Don't wait for me. Heat up something for dinner. His eyes puffy from sleep and lies relaxed. Okay, be careful, he mumbled. Call me if you need anything. I smiled. I will. I kissed his forehead. I wanted him to feel safe. I wanted him to think, finally, the house is mine. I grabbed my purse, walked out the front door, closed it like I was leaving town, and crossed the street. Juliet, Mrs. Peterson said, opening the door, her hair still in rollers. Good morning, dear, I said, my voice low. Can I stay here for a few hours? I need to watch my house. She stared at me for a second. We were neighbors for 20 years. She'd seen me carry flour. She'd seen me cry when my husband's mother died. She'd seen me celebrate when I opened my second bakery. She knew. She didn't ask. Come in, she said. Coffee, please. She sat me by the front window. From there, I had the perfect view of my house. Front door, driveway, kitchen window, the one that would start smoking. I put on my headphones and opened the app that connected to the recorder in my bedroom. Silence, at first, just shuffling, breathing, the sound of bed sheets. Then Julian's voice, yawning, shower running, then footsteps, his, down the hall, a door opening, kitchen cabinet, fridge. I could picture him making coffee he didn't deserve. I sipped my own. Outside, the street slowly woke up. A car here, a dog there, 2 kids walking to school. I waited. It's funny how long 10 minutes can feel when you're waiting for your husband to bring his mistress into your house. At 9:57 a.m., it happened. A yellow taxi stopped in front of our house, as if she were going to brunch, as if she weren't about to sleep with her father. In law. Allison. Floral dress, dark sunglasses, hair down. She looked around, nervous but not nervous enough. Julian opened the door fast, like a teenager letting in his secret girlfriend before his parents got home. Come in, he said, glancing up and down the street. They disappeared inside. I could hear them now through the recorder. Her laugh. Hi. Fake. His voice lower. See, we don't have to go to hotels anymore. Finally, she said, with that same disgusting tone I'd heard in the parking lot recording. The old hag is gone, right? I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. In Mrs. Peterson's living room, I was a calm woman, drinking coffee. In my headphones, I was listening to 2 people commit a sin in my bed. They walked to the bedroom. I heard the springs, clothes rustling, whispering, kissing. I pulled off one earbud, breathing through my nose. Mrs. Peterson was watching TV, pretending not to notice how hard I was holding the cup. I put the earbud back in, and then it came. Allison's voice, but different. No, high, sharp, panicked. What is this? Julian, I can't move. I smiled. Julian's voice, low and furious. Shut up, calm down. Hold on, let me silence. Then Allison again, almost crying. It's stuck. It's not coming off. Julian, it's stuck. I whispered. Yes, it is. That industrial superglue had set exactly the way I knew it. Would they had used what they always used? They just didn't know. This time it wasn't meant to help them slide. It was meant to hold. Were trapped in the most humiliating position of their lives. Now they just needed spectators. I reached for the string tied to the stove's ignition. I pulled. Click. Inside the house. The flame leaped to the skillet of oil. A thick, black, ugly smoke rose up and out of the small open window, pouring into the morning air like a distress signal. Juliet, your house, Mrs. Peterson gasped, already standing. I put on my best shocked face. Oh my God. Outside, the neighbors started to shout. Juliet's house, it's smoking. Call the fire department. Yes, I thought. Call him. Call my son. Call the man whose wife is inside that house, in the worst position a woman can be found in. Let me tell you something about public shame. It is louder than a fire alarm. Within minutes, people were on their lawns, phones out, gossip half. Some were actually worried about me. She went to Nashville. One woman yelled. I saw her leave. Is anyone inside? Another asked. Oh yeah. A man snorted. I think there's two inside. I kept my eyes on the window. I could still hear the audio. Allison, crying now. Julian, I can't move. It hurts. Do something. Julian, furious, sweating, helpless. Don't scream. Someone will hear. Just, it's not. Damn it. They weren't thinking about love. They weren't thinking about inheriting my mockery. They weren't even thinking about me. They were thinking about getting unstuck. Too late. The siren came. Before they could even pull the sheet over themselves. Heard it before I saw it. That long, deep wail. The kind that makes children run to the window. The kind that makes everyone stop what they're doing. The kind that makes secrets impossible. The big red fire truck turned onto our street. Professional, beautiful. And when I saw the man in the front seat, my heart pulled in two directions at once. My son. Daniel. My boy, who became a firefighter because he liked saving people. My boy who married wrong. My boy who loved us both. He jumped off the truck, helmet in hand, face hard. No time for emotions, just work. Smoke from the kitchen. Someone yelled. Could be people inside. Another added. He didn't know yet. He didn't know who. He didn't know what. I stood beside Mrs. Peterson on the lawn, like a woman whose house was on fire. Daniel, I called, running forward. I just got back, Mom. Stay back, he said, focused. We'll handle it. He turned to his team. Break the door. Just like that. The front door that had welcomed birthdays, holidays, grandchildren. Boom. Shattered. Firefighters rushed in. And then came the part I didn't get to see with my eyes, but I heard through the recorder. Boots on the hallway. Men coughing from the smoke. A voice. Kitchen small stove. Fire put it out. Another voice. Chief, there's people in the bedroom. My son's voice. Confused. People. The bedroom door flung open. And there, on my bed, my son found his father and his wife. Naked. Stuck. Moaning. From pain and shame. I heard the silence. The kind of silence that hurts in your ears. Then, Daniel's voice, broken, stunned. Dad. I swallowed hard, standing on the lawn, watching the neighbors film. I wished I could protect him from that moment, but they were going to destroy him quietly. I chose to destroy them loudly. A younger firefighter tried to stifle a laugh. Another gasped. Holy silence. Daniel barked, rage and humiliation in one syllable. Outside, people were pushing closer. What's happening? Who is it? I heard it's her husband and that girl. Which girl? The doctrine. Phones raised, mouths open, whispers turning into full-blown shouts. Father-in-law, what a disgrace. Poor Juliet. That last one sent a strange warmth through me, because finally, for once, I was not the fool, I was the wronged, and everyone knew it. Inside, the firefighters had a problem. How do you carry two naked, glued together adulterers out of a smoky house without showing everything? You don't. You just try to cover enough. I heard fabric sheets being yanked, Allison sobbing. Please, please don't let anyone see. Too late, dear. Julian groaning. Daniel, son, close the door. Tell them to go. But Daniel was a firefighter at work, and the house was full of smoke, and people were gathered, and he was too hurt to protect them. They wrapped them in white sheets, but the shape of them was obvious. Two bodies that should never have been that close. When they emerged, the street went wild. Oh my God, it really is them. She slept with her. Look at him. Shameless. Someone's camera was 2 feet from their faces. Someone else was crying, laughing. Someone else was cursing. I just stood there, face set, arms folded like I, too, had just discovered it. Daniel came out last. His face was gray, not from smoke, from devastation. He looked at me for a second. I thought he knew that I had set all of this up, knew that I had laced the glove compartment with glue, knew that I had triggered the smoke. But all he saw was his mother. Mom, he said, voice low, shaking. It was them. I nodded slowly, my eyes filling on command. I know, I whispered. I know. They loaded Julian and Allison into the ambulance, still half stuck, still cursing, still crying. As the doors closed, I heard Julian shout, Juliet, I can explain. No, you can't. Not this. Not in front of God and the whole neighborhood. Not when a video is already on Mrs. Peterson's phone. Not when every neighbor group chat is firing. Not when people are saying, did you hear? Her husband was sleeping with their daughter and they got stuck. The whole street saw. That kind of sin doesn't get quietly forgiven. That kind of sin lives online. And I made sure of one more thing. I went to the hospital, not just to check on them, to finish it off, because humiliation isn't complete when the ambulance leaves. Humiliation is complete when the betrayed wife walks into the room with divorce papers, and the mistress is still crying from the mustard she thinks is burn ointment. Hospitals have their own kind of silence. It isn't peace, it's restraint. It's the sound of people holding back screams behind curtains. When I arrived at County General, the automatic doors opened, and that sterile, lemon-scented air hit me, the smell of bleach and regret. The nurse at the counter looked up with that professional pity I've seen only a few times in my life. Mrs. Roberts, she asked. I nodded. Your husband and the other patient are in observation. They'll be fine, but they're... She struggled for the words. Her eyes flicked to the clipboard, as though the paper could tell her how to describe what she'd just seen. Double quotes. Still in some distress, she finished finally. Distress, I repeated softly, tasting the word like something sour. She didn't know how accurate that was. They'd managed to separate them, of course. The surgeons had too. It took solvents, precision, and a lot of patience. Skin would heal, dignity wouldn't. I sat in the hallway, pretending to tremble like a woman whose husband had just suffered a tragic accident. Inside, I was listening to nurses whispering, to patients gossiping. One young orderly walked by muttering, "That's them, right? The couple from the video." Another chuckled, "Father-in-law." My God, people are wild. Mrs. Peterson's footage had already found its way online. I didn't even have to lift a finger. A doctor in a white coat came out of their room, his face red and shining from exhaustion. "Mrs. Roberts," he said gently, "we managed to separate them. They'll both need rest, but there's no permanent injury. Some abrasions, minor burns, mostly superficial." Superficial, perfect word. That was their whole relationship. He continued, "They're sedated for now. We'll give them ointment for the affected areas." I nodded, forcing a faint, trembling smile. "Thank you, Doctor. May I see them?" He hesitated. "Of course, but please, keep it brief." He handed me 2 tubes of medical ointment from a tray. "Apply this to the burns, twice daily." I took them, flipping them into my purse, and felt the small, cold weight of my own 2 tubes, already waiting there. Prepared last night, thick yellow mustard, sharp, acidic, painful on raw skin. They looked identical, same color, same texture, same cheap plastic caps. I waited until the nurse turned to fetch papers, and in one smooth motion, I swapped the labels. Then I walked into the room. Allison was curled on one side of the bed, face blotchy from crying, her once perfect hair matted. Julian lay on another bed, pale eyes closed, his hands wrapped in gauze. He looked smaller than I remembered, weaker, less man, more memory. When he heard my steps, his eyes fluttered open. He tried to speak. "Juliet, I can explain." I raised a hand. "Don't. You'll only make it worse." His throat bobbed. He looked like a child caught stealing. Allison turned her face toward the wall. She couldn't meet my eyes. I set the ointment tubes on the metal tray beside their beds, right next to the water pitcher. "These will help," I said evenly. "Doctor's orders." No one said a word. I turned to go, paused in the doorway. "You should rest," I told Julian. "You'll need strength for the paperwork." "What paperwork?" he croaked. "You'll see," I said, and left. I didn't stay long enough to hear the first scream, but I didn't have to. It came echoing down the hallway 5 minutes later. High, sharp, tearing. Then another dot, then a nurse, shouting, "Get saline now." I didn't move. I sat calmly on the waiting bench, my purse on my lap. Like any good wife, a man across from me looked up, startled. "What happened in there?" I tilted my head. "They must have applied the ointment." When the nurses rushed past, I looked down at my hands and saw they weren't shaking anymore. A doctor stormed out of the room a few minutes later, barking orders: "Neutralize it. Get cold compresses." The hallway buzzed like a hive. An old woman whispered to her son, "That's them, the ones from the fire, the father-in-law." Her son frowned. "Disgusting." Another voice nearby added, "They deserve every bit of it." No one defended them, no one pitied them. That was enough for me. When the chaos settled, the door opened again, and this time, Daniel stood there, my son, still in his uniform pants, jacket open, eyes hollow. He saw me and froze. For a second I thought he'd shout, but he didn't. He just walked toward me, shoulders sagging like a man who'd aged 20 years overnight. "Mom," he said quietly, "they're asking for you." "I have nothing to say," I replied. He nodded slowly. "Then let me say it for you." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick folder. Inside, documents, neatly stacked, labeled in my handwriting, the envelope I'd hidden at home. "You told me to bring this," he said, voice flat. "I found it." He looked up at me, not angry, not yet forgiving, just hurt. "Let's end this, Mom," he whispered. Together, we walked back into the room. Julian was sitting up now, bandaged, face pale with both shame and pain. Allison was beside him, sobbing into her hands. They looked like what they were, two broken people who thought they could win. I put the folder down on the table between us. Julian looked up, wary. "What's this?" "40 years of marriage," I said calmly, summarized into 2 sheets of paper. I slid the divorce papers across the table. "You'll sign them now." "Juliet," he started, but I cut him off. "No more talking, no more lies. You will sign these, and you will both disappear from my life, and from Daniel's. You will not call, you will not come near the bakery, you will not touch a cent of what I built." Julian's lip trembled. "Juliet, please." "I didn't what?" I snapped, my voice sharp enough to slice the sterile air. "Didn't cheat, didn't betray your son, didn't plan to forge my signature on property contracts." He fell silent. His eyes darted to Daniel's face, begging, perhaps, for an ally. But Daniel's eyes were stone. "Sign them," my son said. Julian swallowed, reached for the pen with trembling fingers, and signed. The scratching sound of his pen on paper was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Allison looked up, eyes red. "Daniel, please, I made a mistake. I don't know what happened to me. Please forgive me." He didn't answer. He just turned and walked out. When I left the room, the nurse at the desk gave me a small, uneasy nod. "You did what you had to." Her look seemed to say. Daniel was leaning against the wall outside, his face buried in his hands. I touched his shoulder softly. He didn't look up. "Why her, Mom?" he whispered. "Why him?" I took a slow breath. "Because evil doesn't always look like strangers, sweetheart. Sometimes it sits at your table and calls you family." He turned toward me then, eyes glistening. "I don't know what to do now." "Start over," I said gently. "With me?" He nodded once, a broken motion. Then he hugged me, the kind of hug that feels like two people keeping each other from falling apart. For the first time in days, I let my tears fall, not for Julian, not for Allison, but for Daniel, for the boy who loved us both and lost everything in one morning. The next few weeks blurred by. The world moved fast, but gossip moves faster. By the end of the week, everyone in town had seen the footage. By the next, customers were whispering about it at the bakery. By the third, local news anchors were debating whether it was true love or taboo scandal. For me, it was none of that. It was closure, and revenge that came baked at exactly 350 degrees, slow, steady, complete. Julian and Allison vanished soon after the divorce was finalized. Some said they moved states, others said they split. I didn't care. Daniel moved in with me. He helped me run the bakery. He handled the cash register while I needed dough. He didn't smile much at first, but one morning, as I pulled a tray of flan from the oven, he said softly, "Mom, make one extra tonight, for us." And just like that, the kitchen felt like home again. People came to the bakery more than ever after the scandal, not out of cruelty, out of admiration. "Juliet, you're a legend," Mrs. Peterson told me one afternoon, handing me a bouquet of daisies. You stood up for yourself. You defended what's yours. We're all proud of you. I smiled. Thank you, but I didn't do it to be proud. Then why? I wiped my hands on my apron and looked her in the eye. Because sometimes, I said, a woman has to burn her house down to see who runs out screaming. That night, when the bakery closed, I sat alone at the counter. The air smelled of sugar and smoke, the scent of survival. I took one last look at the empty street outside, the neon sign flickering faintly. I thought of the woman I'd been, quiet, trusting, polite, and then I thought of who I was now, someone who could still bake sweetness out of bitterness, someone who could still rise, like dough left to rest. I smiled. Then I whispered, "Goodbye, Julian. Enjoy your new burns," and turned off the lights. The story of what happened in my house spread faster than any fire ever could, not because of the smoke, but because of the shame. It started with whispers, then came the neighborhood gossip groups, then Facebook pages, then full-blown articles in local interest columns. Someone even sent me a link titled, "When Karma Knocks, the Scandal of the Roberts Affair." They called it a family tragedy. I called it Justice Served Warm, the town that watched for a week straight. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Old friends, reporters, curious strangers, all pretending they wanted to check if I was okay. But what they really wanted was the story. "Juliet, how did you find out? Juliet, did you really set the smoke? Juliet, is it true?" They were stuck. I gave them nothing but my bakery's new opening hours. The world could say what it wanted. I wasn't going to let my life turn into their entertainment. I had something more important to do. Rebuild. The bakery became my fortress. The smell of yeast, butter, and vanilla was the closest thing to peace I had. I'd come in before dawn, tie my apron, and start kneading. Dough doesn't lie. It doesn't cheat. It only becomes what you put into it, and I put all my pain into every loaf. Daniel started helping at the front counter. He didn't talk much, not at first. His eyes still carried that hollow look of someone who's seen too much, too fast. Customers would whisper when he passed, "That's her son, the firefighter who caught them." Poor boy. I saw him flinch every time. I wanted to tell them to shut up, but gossip has a life of its own. It feeds on tragedy. One evening, I found him sitting behind the bakery, staring at the empty flour sacks. "Mom," he said, "I can't stop seeing it. The smoke, the bed, their faces." His voice cracked. I sat beside him and handed him a cup of hot cocoa. "I know," I said, "but you're not the one who should be ashamed." He didn't answer. We just sat there, in the quiet hum of the refrigerators, drinking in silence. And for the first time since that day, I saw a flicker of calm return to his eyes. The community's verdict: not everyone was cruel. Some people came in with soft voices and warm smiles. They ordered pastries they didn't even want, just to show support. "Juliet, you did what every woman dreams of doing but never dares," one customer said as she paid for a dozen. "I didn't do it for revenge," I replied. "I did it for truth." She smiled. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Mrs. Peterson became something of a celebrity herself. Her video was shared over 2 million times. Every day someone would stop her in town. "Are you the neighbor from the clip?" they'd ask, half laughing, half horrified. She'd glance at me and smirk. "Yep, and the woman who got her justice lives right across the street." Julian's disappearance. I heard that Julian left town with Allison soon after the hospital incident. For a while, I wondered what they said to each other on that trip. Did they cry? Did they fight? Did they finally realize how ridiculous they were? Rumor had it they didn't last, that Allison moved back to her parents' home in another state, and Julian was seen drinking alone in a bar off Route 10, looking 10 years older. I never confirmed it. I didn't need to. The last trace of him I ever saw was a bank notification, the final transfer of his share of the divorce settlement into a joint charity account. I'd insisted on creating one that he'd have to sign over. I used that money to expand the bakery's community kitchen for underprivileged families. If Julian ever read the sign over that door, he'd see the plaque, "For those who hunger for something honest." Daniel's return to light. Months passed. Winter came. Daniel stayed. He started laughing again. Not much, but enough. He'd crack jokes with the morning customers, or tease me when I forgot where I put the flour scoop. "Mom," he said one day while helping me pack catering orders, "you're trending online again." I frowned. "For what now?" He laughed, showing me his phone, a video titled, "Grandma's Revenge." The woman who glued her cheating husband to his mistress had gone viral. Someone had turned my story into a dramatic narration, complete with music and reenactments. The comments were wild. She's my hero. This woman deserves an award. Best use of glue ever. I should have been angry, but I wasn't. Because for once, the world wasn't laughing at me. They were laughing at them. The Pikuris rise. The bakery had never been busier. Reporters, influencers, curious tourists, they all came. But I refused to sell scandal. When one journalist asked, "Would you mind posing with a glue bottle for the article?" I smiled sweetly and said, "Only if you pose with a conscience." The headline the next day read, "Juliet Roberts, the woman who baked her way out of Betrayal." And just like that, orders poured in. Hotels wanted my pastries. Wedding planners wanted my Even a local college asked if I could teach baking classes. I accepted, of course, because teaching others to rise again felt poetic, beguiling with time at night, when the ovens were off and the lights dimmed. Daniel and I would eat leftovers, sometimes just bread and jam, and talk. He never said her name again, and I never said his. But we didn't need to. The silence between us had changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. He started volunteering at the fire department again. He saved lives, put out fires, rebuilt trust, the same things I was doing in my own way. One night, he came home late and said quietly, "Mom, I met someone." I froze for a second, then smiled. "Good, tell me about her." "She's kind," he said simply. "Different." That was enough for me. The documentary call 6 months after the scandal, a woman from a production company called me. She wanted to make a short documentary called Ashes to Empowerment. She said my story had inspired thousands of women to leave abusive or unfaithful marriages. At first I refused. I didn't want fame. But then she said, "We don't want the gossip, Mrs. Roberts. We want the strength." That word strength stayed with me. When the crew came to film, I stood in my bakery with flour on my hands and said the truth. Plainly, I don't recommend revenge, but I do recommend boundaries. I spent 40 years baking for a man who couldn't even stay loyal for one dinner. So yes, I replaced his lubricant with glue, but the real thing I sealed shut that night wasn't his skin, it was the door to my suffering. The interviewer sat silent. Then she whispered, "That's going in the trailer." The quiet victory now. When people walk into my bakery, they don't just buy bread. They buy courage, in a way. They buy the reminder that a woman can fall apart and still rise again. Softer, sweeter, stronger. Sometimes, I catch Daniel looking at me across the counter. He doesn't say it, but his eyes do. "I'm proud of you." And when the sun sets, casting gold through the front window, I whisper back in my heart, "I'm proud of us," because in the end, I didn't just rebuild a bakery, I rebuilt a life. And this time, it's mine alone. But stories like mine never really end, do they? Because just when I thought I'd buried my past, the past found a new way to knock hard, unexpected, and full of secrets. It came in the form of a letter, with Julian's handwriting on the envelope. I found the letter on a Tuesday morning, tucked between the bills and catalogs, sitting like a ghost on my doorstep. No return address, no stamp, just my name, Juliet, written in that same careful, slanted handwriting I'd known since I was 19. Julian's handwriting. For a moment, I just stared at it. My hands went cold, my pulse loud in my ears. I should have thrown it away, burned it, pretended I'd never seen it. But curiosity has a cruel sense of timing. I brought it inside, laid it on the kitchen table, and made myself a cup of coffee. I watched the steam rise and fade, like the ghosts of everything that had already happened. Then I tore it open. The confession, Juliet. If you're reading this, then you probably think I've lost my mind even more than before. Maybe I have, but I need you to know what really happened. Not to change your mind, not to beg forgiveness, just to leave something behind that's true. I never planned to fall for Allison. I swear to God, it wasn't like that. It started after Daniel left for a training program last year. She would come by, help with your paperwork for the bakery. You were always at the store, working yourself to the bone. We started talking. She told me Daniel had been distant, cold. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I was lonely, Juliet. Pathetic, I know, but I felt seen for the first time in years. She wasn't what I thought. She wasn't in love with me. She was using me. The night you found that receipt, she was already talking to a lawyer about transferring the business in her name. She said Daniel didn't care about it, and that if I helped, we'd both have something to live on after you retired. I was stupid enough to believe her. She forged the first draft of those contracts. I signed one, without realizing it included your name. I didn't want your bakery, Juliet. I wanted you to rest. I thought she was helping us, but by the time I figured it out, she already had copies and was threatening to show them to Daniel, to destroy both of us. I don't expect you to believe me. I wouldn't, if I were you. But she was planning something worse than betrayal. She was planning to sell everything and disappear. The night you caught us, she had already packed her bags. I didn't know. I thought we were meeting to talk, to fix the mess before it blew up. But she brought the bottle of wine, and I was too weak to stop what came next. I deserve what happened to me, Juliet. Every drop of it, but she deserves more. She's not the victim she pretends to be. Be careful with her. You'll never hear from me again. I'm leaving for good. Maybe that's my punishment, knowing that even if I die tomorrow, the last person I loved will never forgive me. Goodbye, Juliet. Julian. The stillness after truth. I sat there for a long time, the letter open on the table, the coffee untouched, growing cold. Outside, the bakery sign buzzed faintly in the wind. Inside, only the ticking clock filled the silence, the same one that had watched us through 40 years of life, love, and lies. I didn't know what to feel. Anger was still there, yes, but softer, worn down by exhaustion. Pity tried to creep in, but I pushed it away. Julian wanted forgiveness, not redemption. And there's a difference. I folded the letter back into its envelope and placed it in the drawer with the rest of the evidence, the photos, the recordings, the receipts, not out of sentiment, but out of record keeping. Because history, once written, deserves to stay intact. The visit that afternoon, as if summoned by the devil himself, Allison showed up. The bakery bell chimed, and there she was, thinner, paler, wearing oversized sunglasses and a shaky smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel was in the back, taking inventory. Juliet, she said softly, stepping closer to the counter. Can we talk? I didn't answer. I just stared at her. She hesitated, then pulled off her glasses. The skin on her cheeks was raw, the faint scars of the mustard incident still visible. Please, she said, voice trembling. I know I can't undo anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry for all of it. I've lost everything, Daniel. My job, my home. I want to apologize. Apology accepted, I said evenly. Now leave. Her mouth opened. That's it. Yes. She blinked, confused. You're not going to yell, or slap me, or no, because you're not worth the energy. She bit her lip, fighting tears. Julian's gone, she said suddenly, as if that might change something. He left last week, didn't tell me where. He said he couldn't live with the guilt. I thought you should know. I already do, I said quietly. She frowned. How? I slid the letter across the counter toward her. She didn't take it, just stared at the envelope like it was alive. I know everything, I said, including your little plan, the forged contracts, the notary, the threat. Her face went pale. You can't prove that, I smiled. I don't need to. I already did. Her eyes darted toward the door. Get out, I said, my voice calm, final, like the closing of a book. And she did. The bell chimed once more as she stepped into the sunlight. The last time I would ever see her. Daniel learns the truth that evening. Daniel came home tired but lighter than before. I decided to tell him everything, not the details of the trap, not the glue, but the letter. He read it quietly, his face unreadable. When he finished, he folded it neatly and handed it back. Do you believe him? He asked. I believe he regretted it, I said, but regret isn't the same as love. He nodded slowly. Maybe he finally understood what he destroyed, Daniel said, but I can't feel sorry for him. Mom, not yet. You don't have to. He placed his hand on mine. You deserve peace, not revenge anymore, just peace. That was the moment I realized something. Revenge might have given me justice, but forgiveness, Yvonne, the silent kind, was what would finally set me free. That closure, in a box a week later. I went to the river behind town, the same one Julian and I used to walk along when we were young. The air smelled of wet earth and spring blossoms. I brought the letter, the photos, and the recordings, everything that had tied me to that storm. I stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of it in my hands. Then I whispered, you got what you earned. I got what I needed. And I tossed the box into the water. It sank slowly, swallowed by the current. Gone like the years I'd wasted believing in forever. The message from the past. 2 days later, I received one last call from an unknown number. When I answered, there was only silence. Then, a man's voice, faint, shaky, tired. Juliet. Julian, where are you? I asked, surprised at the steadiness of my own voice. "Nowhere you need to find," he said. "I just wanted to hear your voice one last time." I didn't hang up. "I read your letter," I said quietly. "You were right about her, but you were wrong about something else." "What?" "You said you loved me." A pause. "I did," he said. "No," I replied softly. "You loved the version of me that forgave you before you even apologized." He didn't answer, just a shaky exhale. "Goodbye, Julian," I said. "I hope you find peace somewhere far from mine." The line went dead, and I realized that for the first time in 40 years, I meant it. A quiet evening that night. The bakery lights glowed golden against the dark. Daniel and I sat on the counter, sharing a small plate of flan, his favorite. "To new beginnings," he said. "Two endings that make them possible," I replied. He smiled, really smiled this time. For the first time since that awful day, the house felt alive again, not haunted, not angry, just still. But life, I've learned, never ends with stillness, because just when I thought I had finally buried my past, something unexpected happened. A stranger walked into my bakery the next morning, a woman, maybe in her 30s, holding a child by the hand. She looked nervous, almost apologetic, and when she spoke, her words froze the air between us. Double quotes. "Mrs. Roberts, my name is Elena. Julian was my father." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. The words hung in the warm, cinnamon-scented air of the bakery like frost. "Julian was your father," I repeated. The woman nodded slowly. She was nervous, clutching the little boy's hand so tightly his knuckles whitened. Her voice trembled. "Yes, my name's Elena. I didn't mean to intrude. I just needed to see you once." I stared at her, studying her face. There was something familiar in the tilt of her chin, the faint wrinkle between her brows, but the eyes, her eyes were Julian's, that soft, ocean gray color I used to fall into when he said my name. I felt my heart begin to race, that strange, involuntary pounding that comes not from love but from memory. "Sit down," I said quietly. She hesitated, then took a seat across the counter. The boy climbed onto her lap, clutching a small toy truck. "The child of the secret. I know this is sudden," Elena began. "I didn't come for money or drama. I came for answers. Answers about what? About him." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small photograph, old, creased, the edges soft from years of being carried. It was Julian, younger, maybe in his 30s, standing beside a woman I'd never seen before. Dark hair, bright smile, holding a baby. "That's me," Elena said softly. "My mother's name was Teresa. She passed away when I was 15. Before she died, she told me Julian Roberts was my father. She said he'd promised to come back for us, but he never did." The room tilted slightly. I steadied myself on the counter. Julian and I had been married over 40 years. If Elena was in her 30s now, he'd had a child before Daniel was even in high school. Another family, another lie. The weight of the pasta coffee machine hissed softly in the background, breaking the heavy silence. I swallowed hard. "Why come to me?" "Because I heard about what happened," she said, her voice shaking. The scandal, the fire, everyone did. I tried to ignore it, but something inside me told me I needed to see you, to understand what kind of man he really was. She looked up, her eyes glistening. "Because for years, I made him a hero in my mind. I thought he left because of circumstance, not choice. But when I saw the news, I realized maybe he wasn't who I believed." The child tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Mommy, can I have a cookie?" I blinked, shaken back to the present. "Of course." I reached behind the counter and handed him a small sugar cookie shaped like a heart. He smiled, innocent, unscarred by the lies that had shaped his bloodline. "Thank you," Elena whispered. "You didn't have to." I nodded. No child should ever pay for their father's mistakes. Amira, I didn't expect. She told me bits of her story, growing up in a small town south of Austin. Her mother waiting by the window every Friday, hoping Julian would visit. He never did. He'd sent money a few times, she said, always in cash. No letters, no calls. He was a ghost who paid rent in guilt. I listened, every word like a needle threading through 40 years of my own blind devotion. Finally, I asked, "What do you want from me, Elena?" She took a deep breath. "Nothing. Just the truth. Was he ever good? Was he ever kind to you?" I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said, "Yes, once, but not enough." Her eyes softened. That's what I thought. The final goodbye. The doorbell chimed as Daniel came in from the back, flowers still dusting his apron. "Mom," the the hotel order. He froze mid-sentence, his eyes flicking between me, Elena, and the boy. Daniel, I said softly. This is Elena. He frowned. A customer? No, I said gently. Your sister. The word hit the air like thunder. His eyes widened. What? Elena's eyes filled. I didn't mean to come at a bad time. I just needed to meet the rest of him, the part he left behind. Daniel looked at her for a long time. Then he exhaled slowly and said, then I guess, welcome. No anger, no denial, just tired acceptance. The kind that comes when life has already wrung all the rage out of you. The little boy peeked out from behind Elena's arm. Hi, Daniel smiled faintly. Hey, buddy. For the first time in months, I saw something soften in my son's eyes. The visit to the grave a few weeks later. A letter arrived from a hospice in Arizona. Julian had died quietly in his sleep. Heart failure. No funeral. No one claimed the body. They found my address in his wallet. For a long while, I just stared at the letter. Then I packed a small box of pastries, the kind he used to like, and drove out to the small cemetery where they'd buried him. The desert air was dry and warm. The horizon endless. A simple wooden marker read, Julian Roberts, 1958-2025. A restless man finally at rest. I placed the pastries at the base of the grave. The wind picked up, scattering sand over the box, as if eager to cover him completely. Goodbye, Julian, I said softly. You left too many stories half-baked. The words didn't come from bitterness anymore, just truth. And truth, I realized, is the purest kind of peace. A new legacy back in town. Life went on. The bakery thrived. Elena began visiting with her son on weekends, helping Daniel with deliveries. He called me Grandma Juliet the first time, and I felt something inside me mend. We became a strange, stitched-together family, not built on blood, but on honesty. One afternoon, Elena looked up from rolling dough and said, you know, for all his mistakes, he gave me something good. He gave me you. I smiled, dusting flour from my hands. No, we gave that to each other. Outside, the afternoon sun poured through the bakery windows, turning the air golden. The bell on the door jingled, and laughter spilled into the room. Daniel talking to a customer, the child giggling, the smell of bread rising. For the first time, it didn't smell like survival. It smelled like life. Epilogue. The story I finally told months later. I recorded the story you've just heard, not for fame, but for freedom, to remind anyone listening that pain doesn't end you, it remakes you. People ask me now, Juliet, do you regret what you did? And I tell them the truth, no, because some people learn from forgiveness, and others only learn from consequences. If you've been betrayed, you don't need to glue anyone's life together or apart. You just need to find your strength, the quiet kind that needs pain into purpose. I found mine in an oven, in a bakery, in a story that refused to stay silent, and if you're listening now, wherever you are, know this, you can rise again. Just like bread, warm, golden, and whole.